been at this 45 minutes now, and it's going pretty well, but I'm getting really bored of doing it. Done all along the top there. This section of the B pillars worked out really nicely, but I will have to remake that bit to go in there. Along the bottom, I've done most of them. There's a couple down there where I'm going to have to beat the floor towards me. That's a bit of floor that I put in on the far side and it's not quite right. Doesn't really matter. To get to the plug welds in here and some of the others at the B pillar, I'm going to have to take the doors off. That bit's all quite straightforward. I was playing with this bit of wing that I chopped off carefully last time, and it actually fits in really nicely and lines up with the sill down here. So rather than taking the whole wing off at this stage, and just for expedience sake to get this car back on the road, which of course was the original idea, I might just plug or tack weld that on and the lower section, knowing that I'll pick it all off again in the future. I'm going to go home now because I am pretty tired. It's been a long day and I'm just going to rush things if I'm not careful. But yeah, I haven't done the top at the back yet, but it's all lining up nicely, so that's all good. So I'm going to stop there and then probably edit this into another video, maybe this weekend when I carry on a bit more. What's been a matter of seconds for you has been a few hours work for me on a very hot Saturday morning. Basically, I've been continuing to weld around here. None of this is cleaned up, but I've got some stitches in there, welded around the periphery of there, done all the plug welds where I can get to them. There are some in places that I just can't get to yet. It's going to necessitate taking the doors off, but I don't want to take this door off yet because I don't want to disturb the lines, because the next sensible thing is to chop that wing off, and when I put the new one on I want to be able to reference measure up to that, so I don't want to disturb the hinges. So I think I'm going to leave the sill there for the moment, and start breaking down the rear of the car, get that window out and work out how to chop that panel out neatly. There's a slight flaw to my cunning plan. The boot is actually acting as my store for a lot of this stuff, and of course if I'm chopping that wing off, I've got to chop right the way down to the floor down there. I can't remember if I've ever actually done a video showing the wonderful boot floor as it is, but basically it has some quite big holes in it, and we've got this damage over here, more distortion from where this thing has been picked up and thrown around by forklift trucks. I don't know whether that's coming across, but that's pushed up probably by about 3 inches. I've never got round to actually chipping off all of the sound deadening. What appears to be good metal might not be, because it's all covered in this thick sound insulation stuff, like bonded to it. Stops noise and drumming and stuff, but it also acts just to trap water. So I'll have to have a really good poke around in here to work out how much of this boot floor can be saved and how much of it is actually for the bin. But yeah, gonna clear all that out, get the bumper off, get that light off, and see if I can get that window out without breaking it. Right, I've been making a bit of a mess. Bumper is off, no massive dramas. The bolts were a bit stubborn, but I got them off in the end with the impact gun. This bumper is for the bin, but before I scrap it, I'm taking the end cap off this side. They're bonded on and they usually get cracked and broken, so having that as a good spare means it'll get me out of trouble if I find another bumper that has a cracked end cap. Making really good progress. We had a nice surprise behind that tail light. Ordinarily there's some rust in here, and the bolts that go between the tail light and the body are usually rusted and are a right pain to get off. That came out beautifully, which is really strange considering the rest of the car. And then the badge bar, got that off without much problem. There was one broken stud, but I can fix that. These are the big bolts for the tow bar. You can see how much damage fitting a tow bar to one of these does. It's crushed that member in, and it's been the initiator of a lot of the rust in the boot floor, because they're just plain holes drilled through with metal brackets. That's one of them. You can just see what it's done to the boot floor. So it's going to be interesting to see just how rotten it is under all that sound deadening material. I've taken the carpet out from that side as well. I'm just about to look on the internet to see if they are still available and how much new window rubbers are, because I managed to break a glass once by trying to push it out with my feet, which everyone says you can do, but I ended up putting my foot through it. So the only safe way of getting them out is to cut the seal. It's not particularly rare glass, it's just bronze tint. It's not got the number plate in it or anything. It's not etched or anything like that, but it would be nice to keep it, particularly as it still has its original diesel fuel only sticker. Because remember, back in 1984, it would have been quite a strange thing to be putting diesel in a car, let alone a 5-door family saloon or executive type car. I think there was just this, the Mercedes, like big Mercedes, whatever it was, and a Peugeot 604 turbo diesel. That was it until the year after, and then the CX turbo came out. But yeah, rare cars, these diesels for back in the 80s, early 80s anyway. Tow bar is out of the way, as is the number plate. That was quite difficult to get off because I didn't want to risk damaging it. But I got it off with a pair of mole grips. Basically the screws had turned to dust, which meant the outsider couldn't get on them at all. So I had to work them out from the inside. Use mole grips, a bit of surface rust, but no rot holes. What is less good is behind the bumper bar, sorry, the tow bar. We have a bit of crustiness here, so I'll give that a good poking with the wire brush, and it feels quite solid actually. There's certainly no holes on the inside, so I'm hoping that I can just dress that, tidy it up. It's quite good that there's no big rust holes around these, tiny bit there, but nothing severe. So all in all, that rear panel, compared to a lot of SD1s, is pretty good. It's not a difficult panel to swap, and it's not expensive either. I think that whole thing is like either 50 or 80 quid. And it's just spot weld seams down the edge and a nice one along the bottom there. So it wouldn't have been the end of the world, but that one's actually good to go again, which will save me a lot of work. This is where, this is where that panel joins on. So I'm going to go get a drink of water because I'm sweating profusely. Then I'll get that seam off. The rest of that trim, that old 1980s speaker, look at that bad boy. Not even screwed in, so that must have sounded great. Yeah, gonna continue stripping that area. I've been online, had a look, and those seals are about 20 quid plus the postage each. So I've decided to have another go at pushing that out. It's a lot warmer than when I did the last one that broke, so I'm hoping, and it feels like that seal is a lot more pliable, so I'm hoping it will come out okay. I've just been around with WD-40 and a screwdriver, levering the seal away from the metal and just lubing it up. So I'm going to climb in the boot now, just gently ease it with my foot, starting in the top right corner, and hope it comes out. Thought I'd just photo this before I move. Basically, I put my foot up here and gently pressed, and with the screwdriver I just pushed the seal out along that edge and along the top, and by the time I got to about here, gentle pressure, it popped and it didn't break. So that's good. So now I'm going to get outside. Hopefully I can lift it out. The window is out. It is in my hand. I might need to buy a new seal after all, because that corner piece where there's a piece of steel bonded in there is extremely rusty. So I'm not sure whether I actually need it, but I don't know. I might yet end up swapping that whole seal. You can see how well developed that corrosion was. It's really crappy. So good job on, oh yeah, look at that. Oh, this is gonna require some liberal pokage. Crusty. Yeah, so probably was a good idea to pop this off. The plan is to chop as little metal out as I can get away with. It's really only damaged to about there, so it would make sense to do one neat cut through here, maybe get that bit as well, there's a bit of crust in there. Take the panel off along that line, trim through here, then chop the rest off. The donor panel looks like this. It goes right the way up to the roof. Obviously I don't need that bit, so I can just chop it off here and there and then weld it in. Easy. I kind of got bored fanning about doing delicate things. I was trying to get the fuel filler flap off, but I just cannot get to those screws properly. I think they're rusted in quite badly from the other side. I cannot get the rubber grommet out from the filler neck either, so I want to chop away, you know, all of that's got to come off anyway, so I'm going to do some fun destructive stuff and chop the majority of this wing off. So I'm just going to go along there, up here, through here, along the top of that flange, and then across to there, and then in that edge, and then I'll drill that bit out afterwards, and then along the back edge around the wheel arch. So should be quite good fun. Right, cut round the most of it. These are just the rough cuts because I didn't want to cut into my wheel arch or any of the panels behind. Annoyingly, I forgot about the sunroof drain plug, sorry, drain tube, which I've managed to hack through. Fortunately, I didn't get the loom, so that's good. I've run out of cutting discs, rather frustratingly, right at the end here. So I'm going to go and find a hacksaw or something just to do that last bit, and then hopefully that wing will come off, or the remains of the wing will come off. Well, there it is, and there's the mess. Not really much to say. That inner wheel arch is really good, apart from the very bottom edges and a bit here. I won't know for sure how bad it is until I've unpicked the rest of it, but up here and the damper mount and everything is really solid, no rust at all. That bit is I'm quite relieved because what looked like a nasty big rusty scab hasn't got to the inner panel, so it's just the wing, so that's good. All of this just wants to come off, that's nice and solid. I will have to remake the rear section of that inner skin, and then that will get welded back onto the end of the longitudinal rear chassis rail here, and obviously I'll have to tidy up all of that. And then down here it's frilly, not very nice, but it's no better or worse than I expected. It'll all be hidden, so what's good is I can cut off the bottom inch of this, weld it to my new boot floor, and then weld the wing to, well, space at the moment, and then I'll get around to welding it all together when I get around to doing the boot floor. I'm not sure how much more I'm going to do today. I might have a poke around in the boot, but I'm utterly knackered because I did a lot of driving yesterday and a 13 or 14 hour day, and it's a real hot day today as well, so I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, while it looks like I've done something constructive. Well, it's destructive but constructive at the same time. I still haven't gone home yet. I picked up the chisel and started poking around in here, and it's quite therapeutic actually. Usually I try and do this when it's cold because this bituminous stuff is quite flexible. When it's cold it just sort of shatters and delaminates, but it's actually coming off okay today. And most people go like, oh my god, I can't believe you're restoring this car, it's rotten and it's a heap of shit, blah 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 blah. And I don't mean most people on YouTube, I think just most people I meet in daily life, which is fair enough. But although it is rotten, it's actually, like, relatively speaking, not that bad. Stuff like this, which is the latch that holds the spare wheel down, that always rusts out, and yeah, that's fine, easy to do because you just drill out the plug welds here, take that off, put a patch in, weld it back on, easy. That seam along the edge is gone, that's not a big deal, because I'd probably end up like putting a new flange on there anyway, sorry, even if the boot floor had been quite good, because the rust would have rotted it out, like if I was swapping that rear wing anyway. That doesn't make sense, but hopefully you know what I mean. That is easy to do. Unpick the towing eye bracket, just weld a big plate in after I've chopped all that off. That's easy to do. The rust hasn't gone quite as high as the trailing arm mount, which is up there. Sorry, the Watts linkage mount, so that's really good. This is slightly more problematic because it's actually a U-channel. Ideally I'd be able to get that out of another car. I might not be able to, so I'll probably have to just fabricate it myself. That is most unusual, to have the perimeter of the drain plug hole thing actually there. So that's really good. That's all solid metal, just wants a bit of a de-rust. This one is utterly perfect. I've never seen one that good before. All along the back solid. I haven't got to that corner yet, but it's the far edge is gone, but not as bad as the other side. But yeah, that should be relatively easy to repair. And then we've got one hole there, again, easy to patch. This is where the boot floor was really badly deformed. I've just walloped it once or twice with a big hammer and it's dropped down. And what's really good is, although there's a couple of rusty bits right in that corner, where the bolt went through the floor for the tow bar is perfect. Same with that one. Same with that one. So actually, me berating tow bars hasn't done as much damage as I thought it had. It was just rust staining on the top of the sound deadening that made it look bad. So all in all, that's really encouraging, because I was thinking about trying to get hold of a complete boot floor. They used to be available, but Rimmer Brothers, who used to stock a lot of SD1 parts, they've all sold out, and they didn't bother getting any new ones made, which is a real shame, because I'm sure there would have been a lot of demand for them. So the plan is next week sometime, buy some more grinding discs and sanding discs and cutting discs, trim off all of the remaining metal I don't need there, hack out that one until I've got it somewhere where it needs to be, and then weld that panel on, but leaving the bottom bit floating. And then I can build the boot floor up to meet it and put it all back together. So yeah, a good day.